As Disney Plus struggles for relevance, a new article out of Variety lets slip that Star Wars: The Phantom Menace is the most streamed Star Wars movie on Disney Plus, despite spending billions of dollars on sequel trilogy movies. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is my Wookiee co-pilot, Mr. VashSky. Vash, bright suns to you, sir.
Bright suns, but given the topic, I don't think I can qualify as your Wookiee co-pilot. I think I'm Jar Jar or something else like that.
No. I will say that even though Jar Jar was purported to be the first fully CGI animated character, there are a few shots in The Phantom Menace in which it is definitely somebody's hand in a Jar Jar suit, or sitting next to Jake Lloyd in a speeder or something when they get to Coruscant. There's a few live action shots of a Jar Jar in there. I'm not going to call you a Jar Jar because you are fully real life, although maybe we could replace you with an AI sometime in the future, or maybe I'm an AI. But let's get to this story out of Variety. Here, it seems like an innocuous little retrospective article from Variety. This by Adam B. Very, Angelique Jackson, and Casey, I'm going to say Stephen, could be Stephen, Katsy. Sorry, Stephen. Forgive me if I've mispronounced your name there. I'm sure I've gotten at least one of those wrong. The Phantom Menace at 25. A lover, hater, and newcomer debate Jar Jar Binks, pod races, droids, and Darth Maul. Look at that. All of those characters just embodying the Phantom Menace right there. You've got your Darth, you've got your Queen wearing ridiculous outfits. Perfect. You have young Darth Vader, and then you have, of course, Jar Jar Binks. Couldn't encapsulate the film any better, other than maybe putting Liam Neeson in the background there, keeping the whole thing up.
You couldn't say it wasn't imaginative, that's for sure.
That's very true. When Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, debuted on May 19th, 1999, I was there when The Deep Magic was written. I'll point that out. Few movies before or since were greeted with more fevered anticipation. Not only was the movie the first new Star Wars movie in a generation, ooh, love that phrasing, but it was touted as the first of a prequel trilogy charting the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, the Jedi Knight fated to turn to the dark side as Darth Vader. Despite the breathless buildup, this is amazing that they use the word breathless, because one of the trailers that they used for, I forget which prequel trilogy film, I think it was probably Attack of the Clones, where they were showing young, but not this young Anakin Skywalker, the Hayden Christensen one, and they used the Darth Vader breathing fading in and out as they put in images. It was an excellent trailer.
I still remember that. It still resonates with me today.
It's fantastic. It really, the people who did the trailers for the prequel trilogy movies knew what Star Wars should be. No comment on the people making the film, because we do like George Lucas, despite some of his recent comments. By the end of that summer, the near universal consensus was that The Phantom Menace was, at best, a colossal disappointment, and at worst, a calamitous embarrassment. I disagree. I think it's borne out that there are actually a lot of fans of The Phantom Menace because, the numbers that we're seeing and talking about today. Some blame the decision by George Lucas, directing for the first time since 1977's A New Hope, to start the story with a precocious 9-year-old Anakin. Others railed against slapstick antics and pidgin English of Jar Jar Binks. Look what they're avoiding saying there. Hyped as the first ever CGI main character in a live-action film. This is the paragraph where we really want to pay attention. The film's abysmal reputation, however, didn't hurt its financial prospects. It grossed $431 million at the domestic box office and $924 million worldwide, and it seems the negativity didn't last. Along with 2002's Attack of the Clones and 2005's Revenge of the Sith, The Phantom Menace has been reclaimed by a generation of fans who first saw the prequel trilogy as kids. The film has been rehabilitated so completely that, according to multiple sources, again, emphasis here because this is the entire thing that we're talking about, the film has been rehabilitated so completely that, according to multiple sources, The Phantom Menace is now the most viewed Star Wars movie on the streamer worldwide. What in the world, Vash? How do you think that happens when The Phantom Menace is 25 years old and is supposed to be, quote unquote, the worst one?
It looks like good Star Wars Strikes Back. Is that what we're going with right there?
I think there's going to be somebody who pushes back on you as The Phantom Menace being, quote unquote, good Star Wars. Please continue.
Well, look, I get it. I understand people perceive it to be it's kind of a divisive film amongst fans. I think there's been more unification on that as time has gone on. But I understand the criticisms. I understand where good Star Wars separates from bad Star Wars and everything. Look, a lot of people don't really consider the sequel trilogy in the same way that they do the prequels and the original trilogy. And for a lot of people, they view those as kind of packaged trilogies that really coalesce and work together because they're under George's vision right there. And you can kind of see that. This is why I made the comment so early on in this video right here about Queen Amidala, Jar Jar Binks, all Darth Maul, all these things that were original concepts and were eventually embraced, I think, in large part. Now, maybe not so much Jar Jar, but Darth Maul for sure, right? Queen Amidala's incredible costumes and so forth. I think that's been looked at very fondly with the passage of time. Obviously, the execution on that film, is very debatable, but there's great stuff in it. And for a generation of fans, as noted in the article, this was kind of their Star Wars that they grew up with. And so they see these things very differently.
I think you're right. And one of my favorite debates before the sequel trilogy came out was, what order do you watch Star Wars in? And to most people, the obvious order is the order that they came out in. And then secondary to that is the chronological order. But there was something that came forward. I think it was called the Hatchet order, where you watch Star Wars, then you watch Empire, and then you completely cut out Phantom Menace, and then you watch Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, as if you get to that Darth Vader is Luke's father revelation, and then you do a 2-movie flashback, and then you come back to Return of the Jedi to get an idea of the resolution of both of these stories at one time. I'm going to say something a little bit crazy here. If you extend the Hatchet order just a little bit and you add in Force Awakens and The Last Jedi and just completely ignore the existence of Rise of Skywalker, I would say, there's about 6 movies of very solid filmmaking here. And if you just consider the prequel, the Phantom Menace is like historical documents. This was this adventure over there. It's the prequel to the prequels. We don't need to talk about that one. Of course, that also leaves out Rogue One and Solo. I don't know. I might have said something so insane and offensive that people in the comments are going to light me up. I don't know. But that being said, the thing we want to focus on here is, how in the world does, first of all, if this is a global figure, for Phantom Menace being the most streamed Star Wars movie globally. Disney Plus in international territories is Disney Plus and Hulu together over there. It's not called Hulu, it's called Star over there. So this means that even in markets where they're more focused on it being Star Wars, not Star Wars as an extension of the Disney brand, that they go for Phantom Menace. I don't know that if this is something where people sit down to do an extended binge and they start on Phantom Menace and then they're tuning out. So maybe it's actually an indictment of Phantom Menace. I don't know. It also says they're not showing up and watching, to the extent that they're watching Phantom Menace, they're not showing up and watching Force Awakens, or even starting here at Rise of Skywalker or Rogue One or Solo or even the Clone Wars here. We don't have any indications of the television numbers, which would include the Clone Wars series or Rebels or the much forgotten Resistance, which is the TV series that's set during the sequel trilogy. But here we are with a great mystery, or maybe it's not so much of a mystery. Vash, do you have anything to say before we ask our commenters to help solve this riddle for us?
I mean, this is really extraordinary because you have to consider the hundreds of millions, perhaps even billions of dollars spent on content for this franchise. And, Phantom Menace was not looked at as fondly, maybe as it is now when it actually came out right there. But, as people re-embrace these films, especially of the George Lucas era of Star Wars right here, for a multitude of reasons, as stated right there, like the generation of fans who actually grew up with it, like the people who have kind of reassessed and went, you know what, that's actually not super bad. And, adding this complexity and depth to the lore and to the politics of Star Wars and so forth. Some people have really kind of embraced that with the passage of time. So all the things that Disney has done since acquiring this franchise back in 2012, and nothing can live up to the Phantom Menace.
Not even
of Star Wars films.
Not even Star Wars, like the original A New Hope. Okay, I'm
right.
Some of you might be wondering what film I'm talking about. I don't think you're really wondering. When I say Star Wars, I mean 1977, the film that would later be called A New Hope after a couple of minor changes here. Not
Sure.
even the original Star Wars hits as well as Phantom Menace did on Disney Plus. And that is That is astounding to me that people wouldn't be starting at episode 4 or Star Wars in all of this. And yes, just to emphasize to everyone how much money was spent just on Force Awakens and Rise of Palpatine. Not even Rise of Skywalker. That was a little Freudian slip there. Even though, of course, it is that Palpatine wins in the end because all of the Skywalkers are dead. And that just leaves Rey triumphant in claiming the name of Skywalker for her grandfather, the Emperor. The thing that I want to point out here is that Force Awakens cost easily $500 million to make, probably more than that. We've seen from UK tax documents that's not a guess. That is literally how much they spent on it. And Rise of Skywalker cost almost as much as Force Awakens did. Ignoring Last Jedi, they spent easily $1.3 billion just on 2 of the 5 Star Wars films that they have made since they bought the Lucasfilm name here. So, $4 billion for Lucasfilm itself. If they had just put that stuff on Disney Plus, they might have made just as much money. Or if they just re-released these things into theater, because as we know, they just made $15 million internationally on the Phantom Menace re-release when they're releasing for the first time in theaters Turning Red and Soul and Luca. They made just as much money, actually more money, on Phantom Menace than they did on these 3 Pixar films that are hitting theaters for the first time. Not counting a 3D re-release if they wanted to do that, which flopped back in the day, but I think it would make money today. Not counting that there's no new material here. I just think that Disney has mismanaged Star Wars to an amazing level, to a level that you could probably write a saga about how this has been mismanaged. But we want to throw this to our commenters. Why do you think it is that The Phantom Menace is the biggest Star Wars film on Disney Plus right now, despite all this money going into creating new Star Wars content for Disney Plus? I think maybe it's beat out by The Mandalorian, but we'd like to ask you, do you think it's also beating out the television aspect? That would be a tall order. Of course, like this video if you like this video, and consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.